BatFlu, written by Maples and Mulberries, read to you by Evie is Evil. This fic is rated for general audiences. Creator chose not to use archive warnings. The fandom is Batman all media types. The most important additional tags are sick fic, sick Bruce Wayne, emotional hurt/comfort, grief/mourning, and just hurt comfort stuff in general. Summary. Bruce gets a cold. Alfred is left to deal with the mess of a man he becomes. Reader's notes. I myself am sick, and I took the week that I'm recording this off because I was really busy preparing for a convention, and I got sick at the convention. And I figured might as well use the time that I'm sick to record a sick fic. Yeah. Let's get on with the story. It was late at night. Alfred had been asleep for a few hours. Damien was put to bed. Duke had been sleeping for hours. Dick was passed out on the couch downstairs, Cass curled into his side, while Jason was sleeping in the armchair. Even Bruce, the stubborn man he was, had tucked in for the night in his bedroom. It was one of the post-patrol nights where almost everyone was sick with the flu, tired. It rained, it was cold. It had been like the entire group was death-warmed over. Except, of course, Bruce. As ever, he had been adamant that he was just fine, despite the dry rasp of his voice, his heavier-than-normal movements. Alfred had been the first to even catch the flu, likely from that PTA meeting. Bruce had taken good care of him while he recovered. But now that Bruce was sick and Alfred felt better, Bruce had denied each attempt. So, frustrated, Alfred had gone to bed for the night, with a gnawing sense of parental worry for his stubborn boy. It was around 4:30 in the morning that the door to Alfred's room opened with a silence practiced only by decades of training. Inaudible footfalls towards the edge of the bed. All very impressive stuff. Until Bruce sniffled snottily on accident. Without opening his eyes or moving, Alfred's dry voice cut through the darkness. "Ah, and here I thought we were being burgled by a particularly polite rhinovirus." A pause, as he finally cracked one eye open to peer at Bruce's shadowy form, looming miserably over his bed. "Let me guess, suddenly remembering that miraculous child invention called medicine exists. Or did you simply wish to share your suffering like some sort of plague-ridden Dickinson ghost?" He was already pushing back the covers with a long, suffering resignation, despite the sarcasm dripping from every word. Bruce, who had been standing there like a child, telling their parent they threw up, only sniffed in a congested manner again. And all sarcasm stopped when the large, overgrown man promptly flopped onto the bed. Before Alfred could even pull the covers back, he was gently lying back, his head resting on the butler's sternum, across the bed sideways, with his legs hanging off. Alfred furrowed his brow, his arms instinctively curling up around Bruce's shoulders. One hand moved to press against the sweaty forehead currently burrowing into his pajamas. "My word, you're burning up," he murmured, all sarcasm replaced by immediate concern. The theatrical sigh that followed was purely performative, as he awkwardly maneuvered them both upright, without dislodging the human furnace clinging to him. "This is undignified even for you, Master Bruce. At least let me fetch— Oh, for heaven's sake!" The complaint died in his throat when Bruce made a pathetic noise against his collarbone. With the long-suffering expertise of someone who'd done this exact dance since Bruce was a tot, Alfred shifted to prop them both against the headboard. "Very well, but I'm billing Wayne Enterprises hazard pay for pneumonia exposure," he grumbled, already reaching blindly for the bedside thermometer, with one hand, while the other remained firmly wrapped around limp, too broad shoulders. Bruce, in his bulky Batman 6-foot-tall glory, lolled his head against Alfred's chest with a contemplative groan. The thing about Bruce? He didn't handle colds well. Broken bones? Fine. Stab wounds? Fine. Colds? No way. The other thing about Bruce, he was stoic at all times. except when alone with Alfred. Around the JL, mask of indifference. His kids, stone. Alfred?
My nose is clogged,
He mumbled pitifully. Alfred's fingers paused mid-thermometer retrieval, as Bruce's plaintive whine registered. The stern line of his mouth twitched dangerously. An astute medical observation, sir, he deadpanned, finally extracting the thermometer with a flourish. Though I dare say you'll be finding little sympathy after strutting about the cave yesterday, declaring you were fine, while sneezing directly into the case files. He nonetheless tilted Bruce's chin up, with surprising gentleness, to slip the device under his tongue. The resulting beep made him frown. 102.3, and yet somehow still cooler than your average decision-making process. Sighing, Alfred carefully extricated himself, just enough to reach for the nightstand drawer, where he kept emergency cold supplies, producing a vapor rub tin with practiced ease. Now, unless you'd prefer to continue impersonating a blocked chimney. He opened the lid with one thumb, eyebrow arching in challenge beneath his rapidly thinning patience veil. Bruce eyed the blue goop with some reluctance, but eventually he sighed, clearing his throat and going to try and take it, as if Alfred didn't full well intend to treat his charge as he always had when he was sick, spoiled to the bone. Which was why, the second Bruce reached for the tin with slow, clumsy fingers, he found the elder butler's hand firmly swanning his away in a smooth motion. Incapacitated billionaires are the absolute worst patients, he tisked, giving a dramatic shake of his head, as he scooped out a generous swipe of the mentholated balm. You'll poke your eye out if you're not careful. Honestly, Master Bruce. He paused, as he smeared the thick goo over Bruce's red-tipped sinuses. Bruce made a face, his lip raising in a not-so-concealed grimace, his eyes squinting, his brow furrowing.
It smells awful,
he mumbled, voice all air and desert. No doubt he hadn't even thought to stay hydrated. All common sense died in the man the moment he had a bout of illness. Alfred clicked his tongue disapprovingly, while wiping his fingers clean on a handkerchief produced from seemingly nowhere. Yes, well, we can't all smell of expensive cologne and poor life choices, now can we? He reached over to the nightstand again, this time retrieving a glass full of water that had mysteriously appeared, because Alfred always prepared for these inevitabilities. Drink, he ordered, pressing it into Bruce's hands with the sternness of a man who'd been hydrating stubborn wains since the Jurassic period. Unless you prefer I reenact your own parenting techniques by pinching your nose shut until you swallow it like you did to Master Damien last month. The threat was delivered with far too much relish for someone who claimed to be tired.
He was being ridiculous. I had to,
Bruce grumbled, but he did reluctantly sit up. His hulking back was hunched as he drank slowly. Because the lad couldn't possibly manage to open his own mouth and consume fluid without being treated like a toddler, Alfred's dry retort was softened with an exasperated fondness that betrayed years of experience. Honestly, if I didn't know better, I'd assume you enjoy getting sick, purely because it means someone has to pay actual attention to you. He raised a hand to nudge Bruce's chin higher, checking for swollen lymph nodes. Bruce grumbled in reply, the usual,
I don't need attention, I'm Batman,
nonsense sounds. He did seem a bit swollen, just below the curve of his jaw. Mild, just a normal immune response to the plague Gotham Academy had wrought upon them. Typical. Alfred's fingers lingered over the swollen lymph nodes in question, not pressing hard, but not exactly gentle either. As his thumb brushed over the pulse point under Bruce's jaw, he made a non-committal grunt. Still racing, the butler noted, more to himself than anything. Fever's likely to keep climbing. Have you eaten anything since yesterday? The sharp, calculating blue eyes flicked up, scrutinizing Bruce intently.
You watched me eat soup 4 hours ago,
Bruce mumbled hoarsely.
Ah, yes, 3 spoonfuls of broth while simultaneously reviewing case files constitutes as a meal.
Alfred fired back without missing a beat. He pulled the covers tighter around Bruce's shoulders, with the efficiency of someone tucking in an unruly child. He reached for his phone, preemptively texting Leslie Tompkins to be on standby. "You'll forgive me if I don't take your nutritional assessments at face value, given your personal definition of a balanced diet is granola bars and screen time." Bruce laid with a grunt as a sun-spotted yet still strong hand pushed him onto the bed. He shifted a bit to hug around Alfred's waist, burying his face into the side with another grumble. Something about,
"You're talking about Tim."
something about,
"My diet is balanced.
something about.
The Tibetan monks taught me."
Alfred's long-suffering exhale could have powered a small wind turbine as he glanced down at the hulking vigilante clinging to him. "Oh yes, how foolish of me to forget the crucial cave air and brooding food group perfected by Tibetan monks." He deadpanned, while somehow still managing to adjust pillows one-handed behind Bruce's back. His phone buzzed, Leslie responding with predictable sarcasm, but Alfred ignored it, in favor of glaring at the damp patch, already forming on his pajama shirt from fever sweat. "And here I thought we'd outgrown this particular brand of clinginess after you turned 30. Bruce sniffed again, all snot and pathetic man.
"Nightmare,"
he mumbled, instead of a retort. The way his hand was resting over one of Alfred's pulse points suggested it was the usual. His parents. That simple word seemed to suck some of the sharpness from the room. Alfred's hand instinctively came up to card through Bruce's matted hair, with the practiced ease of someone who is intimately familiar with his nightmares. "Hush," he murmured, the edge dulled from his voice in favor of quiet sympathy. Despite the stubbornness and the pride, he knew how deeply these dreams continued to haunt Bruce even decades later. "Same as always?" He already had the answer, but needed the confirmation. Bruce nodded, face hidden against Alfred's sleep shirt. Of course, even the thick flannel fabric couldn't hide the wet feeling of tears. Alfred sighed, quiet and world-weary, before shifting just enough to pull Bruce closer, with an uncharacteristic lack of protest. His fingers traced idle circles against the back of his charge's sweat-damp neck, grounding. "Your parents loved you," he said quietly, because it always bore repeating. "And you still carry them with you every night." The hand in Bruce's hair tightened slightly, as if to steady him through the words. "But tonight, you have me, and a truly revolting amount of vapor rub smeared on your face." Bruce took in a slow breath, released it after a count of 7, just as steady.
"You were God this time."
Not the first time he'd dreamt it. The worst had been about a year after the passing. But even now, the thought taunted him. The butler had died a countless amount of ways in that Gotham smog-filled head. It was easy to see on nights like this that no matter how far the mighty Batman had come, he was still Bruce. Still the little boy clutching at Alfred's jacket after the funeral. Still the teenager who could barely say the word parents without a flinch. Alfred's hand slid from Bruce's shoulder to his back, palm warm and firm against the sharp line of his spine. "I'm not going anywhere, my boy." Bruce didn't respond. He didn't have to. The way his burled arms tightened around Alfred, like a wolf shielding its elders, portrayed enough. It was almost a pity when, about half an hour later, and when Bruce had relaxed into quiet processing, that Alfred had to ruin the now comfortable silence with more fussing. And ruin it Alfred did, with all the subtlety of a British bulldozer. "Master Bruce," he intoned, leveraging one hand against his charge's shoulder to push him upright like a displeased nurse inspecting a troublesome patient. The abrupt movement was undercut by the way his other hand immediately went to steady Bruce's dizzy sway. "That's quite enough wallowing in contagion for one evening." His tone booked no argument, as he reached once more for the thermometer, this time brandishing it with an air of "try me." "You'll either submit to medical attention properly, or I will call Master Dick and inform him you've regressed to needing bedtime stories again." A pause. "I believe there's still that copy of Goodnight Moon in the library." Bruce, who had been half asleep, sat up with no protest, just a hazy, blank blink at Alfred.
"Preferred Goldilocks,"
he mumbled, but opened his mouth for the thermometer anyways. When it beeped, it flashed an unpleasant red. 102.9. Getting higher rather than not. Alfred tisked, reading the display with a disapproving frown. The hand he'd used to nudge Bruce upright now moved to press against his forehead. 102.9, he announced aloud, more to himself than anything, before clicking off the screen and setting the thermometer aside, mentally calculating the current dosage of Tylenol Bruce needed to both reduce the fever and avoid liver damage. "Well, this is what you get for gallivanting about in the rain all week, and pretending you're immune to the common cold," he scolded, moving to reach for the glass of water. The usual retort came.
"Gotham never sleeps,"
only to be cut off by a tone that only a near-century-old ex-spy could manage. "And yet, shockingly, neither does sepsis." The glare he leveled at Bruce would have withered lesser men where they sat. "Unless you'd like me to prepare an IV bag, while explaining to Master Dick why his father can't attend family dinner this weekend, because he's too busy succumbing to a bacterial infection." Bruce grumbled.
"Goldilocks it is."
And Bruce shut up. He took the Tylenol without comment, took the cough syrup, and then, with all the grace of an oversized toddler, stood and lifted Alfred up, an arm hooked under the man's knees, the other his back. He grunted as he went to head out the still open door. It wasn't the first time Bruce had kidnapped his father figure. It wouldn't be the last. Alfred barely had time to let out a scandalized, "Master Bruce!" before finding himself unceremoniously hoisted like some sort of geriatric damsel. The indignity was only compounded by the fact that he didn't even struggle, merely clinging to his dignity, and the bottle of Tylenol, with the weary resignation of someone who'd long accepted that this is his lot in life. "I swear on Her Majesty's grave," he muttered, voice dripping with exasperation, even as his arms looped securely around Bruce's neck. "If you so much as twitch your back carrying me down these stairs—" A pause. "Actually, no, never mind. At least then I could have Leslie sedate you for a full week." Bruce listened to the chatter. Sort of. But his expression read more groggy, half-awake bat with red-rimmed eyes and the emotional weight of an entire army fleet. Yeah, no words were processing, just Alfred, paternal figure, bed, cuddle, safe, feel gross, safe, Alfred. They all knew Bruce could get a little primitive-minded sometimes. The fact that Alfred just let himself be carried, despite being more than physically capable of extricating himself, spoke of years of experience in understanding those particular moods. There was a reason Dick had dubbed them "It Caveman Time" back when he was a teenager. After all grunts and nonverbal demands for attention. And when Bruce plonked both of them down on the king-sized bed with all his usual grace, the butler had to suppress an amused huff into his charge's shoulder. Bruce wrapped around him with a grunt, allowed his grip to loosen enough for Alfred to adjust and fuss over the sheets, before his heavy arms settled down with a finality. And Alfred was suddenly the world's oldest teddy bear, which meant it was up to Alfred, as usual, to ensure both of them avoided suffocating by pillow. A difficult task, when one's charge was currently clinging to him like an overburdened baby, and radiating enough heat to rival the fireplace. Still, he was nothing if not a professional, and despite the awkwardness that came with having a grown man draped over him like a living space heater, He managed to pull both of them under the covers with a practiced ease. "Hush now," he murmured, carting a hand through Bruce's sweat-damp hair. Bruce, for his part, seemed satisfied. He closed his eyes immediately once lying down, and was already drifting. It only took about 5 minutes until his ribs rose and fell in congested but peaceful breaths. Alfred smiled faintly, watching as Bruce finally slept. The man was as bad as a child when it came to illness, in both his refusal to admit when he needed to rest, and tendency to regress when exhausted. Even now, slumped against him, he was still clinging like a limpet, one hand curled possessively round the front of Alfred's shirt. Alfred drifted off too. Eventually, the sun rose, though it was difficult to tell through the heavy velvet curtains Alfred had installed, specifically to deter Bruce's chronic insomnia. By the time either of them stirred, there were 3 increasingly concerned texts from Dick, one from Tim, just a gif of a zombie groaning, and Leslie Tompkins, waiting in the cave with IV fluids prepped. All because one grown man had gone feral over the sniffles. Alfred wouldn't have it any other way. And that is the end of BatFlu. There's no author's notes. Reader's notes. Sorry for all the background noise that's bound to be in this chapter, from random throat gurgles and sniffles. Sick, and I already skipped a week, and I just don't want to skip too many weeks, otherwise I'm going to get off my grind. So I'm going to upload this at some point on Wednesday, and I think I'm doing The Pain of Duality, because I had 1 chapter recorded, and I'm going to edit that and post it, and then who knows when the next thing's coming. Whenever I'm not sick. Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for listening, and bye!